Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to what is the ninth edition of the TTC F1 Championship. Here for the Premier Tier, we are back once again, like I said, for the ninth round of 15 races of this enthralling season where we've had many ups and downs for a number of these teams. But like I said, here we are, and we are into the Republic of China for the Chinese Grand Prix here tonight. For what is my personal favourite slash best circuit. Unfortunately, I am not racing it, but I'll at least be in the comms box so I can watch. It is none other than Mr. Bobberts in the box here for you tonight, as it is pretty much every single week, unless I'm doing something else. We're just waiting on the final driver to hopefully get him very soon. We can get ourselves underway. I'll be honest, not too sure which driver it is that we are waiting for. Yep, haven't got a Scooby-Doo. But nonetheless, I will wait for the drivers to figure it out for themselves and we can get ourselves going. How did we go last week? Obviously from Silverstone in reverse after doing Silverstone for 2 weeks in a row. And, well, if there was domination, we had that last week. And SCI absolutely got the strategy right and dominated the race with obviously the mixture of the one-stop and two-stop strategies between a number of drivers. But obviously the one-stop just about paid off in the end for SCI, and they got themselves their third 1-2 finish out of 8 races this season of what has been a very dominating season for them. You know, VNT have pushed them hard. They have pushed them, for quite a while throughout this series. However, VNT having a poor race last week, and the gap has extended by 54 points. I mean, if there is a bigger gap than that anyone else can think of that you've seen this season in any form of league, yes, that certainly was something else. So it does mean that their gap at the top of the standings does increase, like I said, by those 54 points to 106, more than doubling the lead that there was previous from the end of round 7. FRT, obviously with Quantum and Max Power having a decent result themselves, P3 in the standings, closely followed by IRT in P4 and ERT in P5. Then bit of a gap back to TRT in P6, and then even bigger gap to TF10, Legacy Racing, All Elite Racing Team, and Bravo Racing Club, who did not turn up last week, and they bring up the rear of the field still on minus 18 points. Finally, all the drivers are here. We can get going, finally. Only the 3 minutes, not 4 minutes late, which I suppose isn't too bad. But nonetheless, we're going to get ourselves out onto the track very shortly. Get your thoughts and opinions in the chat. Obviously, whoever is here is good to see you. Obviously, this being TTC and not World Legacy Division like I was doing last night, I will take facts if anyone wants a fact. Obviously, as usual, you know how to do it unless your name is Oscar. Then, I'm sorry, Oscar, but remember to use your points and not just request it in the chat like you normally do. That's much better. He's at least not racing tonight, so he can, well, spend his points to his heart's content. I mean, I've got 8,000 points according to my Twitch at least. Am I going to be using them for myself to give a fact? Absolutely not. Like I said, this is the ninth edition of this 15-round season. Obviously, after tonight, we do go to Canada for the Montreal Circuit de Gilles Villeneuve circuit next week, before we do have our week break and transfer week, obviously, to bring ourselves in for the final 5 rounds of the season afterwards, which kicks off in November. Takes us through to the beginning of December, where obviously we finish as usual at Abu Dhabi with some amazing tracks in amongst there. Obviously, we've got Brazil, Japan, Las Vegas, one of homes of racing, that is the fast-flowing Monza circuit, and like I said, Abu Dhabi to finish this off. But last few seconds before we can get ourselves onto the track. And let's see what we have in store for these drivers. Is it going to be dry? Are we going to see some rain? I mean, I'm not hosting, so there might not be any rain, but we'll wait and see. What is Leo, our host, who's kindly, well, I say kindly, it was his team's turn to host the session, and it looks like it is going to be a dry qualifying, or at least for the time being. We'll get everything up, see as though I can do this at least tonight, and let's see what is going to be in store for these 20 drivers here in this qualifying session. Good evening, Volkongen in the chat. The request a fact thing is a bit expensive, I think. Well, the reason why, Vola, is why it's gone up in price is not just, because of inflation, but also because of the fact that it was only 500 points initially to begin with. It was just getting absolutely spammed. And I couldn't really keep up. So, JT and has very kindly, upped it to those 1,500 points. So at least it gives me more time to get at least some facts in. And yeah, I don't have to worry about it. Yep, save those points, save them as much as you can. There's still plenty of time to do it. We've got 7 rounds left, including tonight. So plenty of time to get those facts in. I have actually got some set and ready in preparation, expecting people to obviously send those in. So when they do, I will be ready with at least a couple of them. Reese there. Retiring, obviously it was I think a lineup late submission or invalidation, I believe. So Reese taking the qualifying ban there for ART crowding. Will be honest, I don't know if it's a double qualifying ban, if it's a single. I'll be honest, I didn't check. If it's just a single, then it's Reese who's taking it, and crowding will be qualifying, or they both might have it, but we'll see. Nonetheless, it is Schumacher though who will be getting us underway here in the Ferrari. Schumacher, a race winner so far this season, if memory serves me right, I believe. Or at least Kevin was. I know that he was at Silverstone when doing it the correct way. Nonetheless, had a bit of an up and down season of ERT. They have shown some good pace at times throughout the season, especially obviously at Catalunya and at Silverstone, but not last week in the reverse aspect, throwing a different lineup, and it just didn't quite work out for them. But nonetheless, let's ride on board with Schumacher on the PlayStation in his Ferrari. Let's go on board here. Let's go down the pit straight now, where we're going to reach 203 miles an hour, just about clipped up before we go into the first few turns here, flicking the car over to the right hand side, downshifting to fourth and then third gear. Tightens there on the exit there, does this second corner in through turn 3 now. And turns 4, just trying to pick that traction zone, just straighten the car up as much as possible before getting onto the power fully. This really isn't a corner here as we exit to finish the first sector, head into the 90-degree right-hander here at the bottom of the hill into second, back up the hill once again through this very fast-flowing left and right complex, flat out here through, or just about flat out, downshift there though for Schumacher to keep the car as far to the left-hand side as he possibly can, into fourth then for the right-hand, and then we have the double left 90-degree corners here. Again, traction can be a bit key. The car can be a little bit squirrely, as Schumacher just found out a little bit there on his initial bank out, but nothing too serious or drastic, at least for the time being. Pick your braking point. Come into this final sector, turning in left and right, and again, traction is a big issue here around this around the banked corner here. The car can easily be squirrely as you get back onto the power, but here we go now down the very long DRS back straight. As we see what sort of wings he's running, we'll get a good idea at least with what he's going to top out at. About 207 miles an hour briefly before going back into medium, then downshift into second gear to get that car rotated into the very, you're going from over 200 miles an hour there down to 50-60 miles an hour, what is that very slow hairpin corner. Final corner, I want to clip the inside line, maybe even cut it slightly if you can get away with there. What is it going to be for Schumacher to kick us off? It's going to be a 31.6 for the Ferrari man to get us underway here. Immediately beaten by well over half a second from Allison there, who I know is good round this track, as is Quantum and is Venom, obviously. So expect them to be towards the top of the time machines. Lorenz there only going 3,000ths off Quantum there in behind his teammates. Let's see. Go on board with those who are coming to complete their laps. That's Nick going into P4 with a 31.3. Tony about to start his lap. His teammate Venom about to complete his lap as he goes completely across the hairpin there, the penultimate corner. Maybe just braked a little bit too early, unless that's his preferred line. But through the final corner for the SCI man, where is Venom going to go? It's going to be P2 with a 31.1 of his own, and splits Allison and Quantum for the time being. Now, is that typical? It is not typical coming to line. It's his teammate Leo, like I said, who was hosting for us tonight very kindly. As going to be the LCS turn, he goes P8 for the time being. How's KJ getting along? His team obviously down into P7 as it currently stands, as Polly Massey now goes into P6 for BRC, who, as I've mentioned, are on minus points. In fact, KJ is actually backed out. He is going to be going again. As indeed is Niall. So both of them not particularly happy with their initial bankers. As it currently stands, here comes Snacker across the line, goes into P3. Snacker's shown some great promise from what we've seen this season so far for when he's been racing. Did very well at Silverstone. I can't remember if it was the reverse or the proper way around, I'll be brutally honest. So apologies there, Snack. But nonetheless, he goes into P3 either way. Pepine, they go into P8 for IRT. As Niall sets a very solid 147.8, obviously, with him going again. Niall has a tendency to do this. We did see this previously, where he might mess up on his first attempt and will go again, even on a second lap on these soft compound turns. Obviously, there you go, 1.1 seconds up through that first sector. Tony Reich now coming into the penultimate corner. I believe that is Crowding just up ahead of him as he comes through the final corner. Tony Reich fairly close behind. Going through it itself, it is P11 for Crowding, and that is an invalidation there from Tony. I'm afraid what would have been a provisional pole with a 31 flat, but going too wide at the final corner. Easy done there by even the best of us, and that is, well, him down in P16 as it currently stands. Let's go on board with, in fact, no, S95 Dome is backed out, so only one more driver potentially out on track to set a lap time, and that is, I'm going to say, is that an L? It is an L. We're going to go with Sal. Apologies to any BRC member who I completely butchered that. Good evening there, Smeggy, in the chat. Interesting comment. Yep, we are not going to go anymore on that. And Troy, I know the ads are fantastic, aren't they? But unfortunately, as ever, I do not have any control over them. So I'm afraid there isn't a great deal I can do about that. You're just going to have to just go off the stream and then go back on it again, and it should go, he says, but it might not. You might have to rewatch it all over again. But here comes Sal now in the Haas down the very long back straight with his DRS lock wide open, reaching 210 miles an hour, a lot quicker than what we saw Schumacher do as we watched him on his initial bank lap. So different different wings here being played out. That is taking a lot of grass there, trying to turn in and straighten the car up as much as possible, and that's it. Well, if there's, how is he not completely destroyed his car? I mean, he's got away with it, and he can continue along with his teammate Paulie Massey. But wow, that's one way to nearly destroy your car. It's certainly an unusual way, but that would have been one for the fails of the season. But he got away. Well, it's still a fail, I will be honest. But he's just about got away with it, and he can get back to the pits, get that changed, and can go again. Some drivers already back out for their second attempts. Niall actually got into P6 with his attempt number 2 on his first set of tyres, and goes into P6. We've already watched Schumacher, so let's go a little bit further back and see how FRT's Quantum can get on. A little bit unlucky last week. He did have to do the 2-stop again. I think that's down to the pad versus the wheel tyre wear around Silverstone, and he did lead throughout quite a bit of that race last week. Quantum showed really good pace, but like I said, having to make that second pit stop, and unfortunately, well, a few more laps and he'd have had a chance, but unfortunately the laps came too quickly for him, and he had to end up finishing in P5, I think it was, in the end for the kick Sauber. But certainly currently P4 and P5 for FRT as it currently stands in these early stages. You know, both of them less than a 10th off pole as it currently stands. The top 5, like I said, separated by less than a 10th. Then quite a few drivers in the .3, well, a few drivers in the .3s, and Pepine in the .4s, so fairly close in these early stages. Still a long way to go, though. We've still got the best part of 11-12 minutes, I think, of this qualifying session remaining. In fact, it's only 9 minutes. It shows how much I've been paying attention on the fact how much these yellow flags have been out, and how slow I can count from 1 to 60 to get a full minute in. But here comes Quantum to start his latest attempt. Let's see how one of the best pad drivers on this game can get on. Sticks the car to the right hand side as much as he can before flicking it over to the left, and then straightening up as we enter the first few corners now. Taking as much curb as he can on the inside line, then down the hill into the very tricky traction exit zone here through 3 and 4. No such issues there for the kick Sauber now as we come up the hill slightly, and in fact he's backed out as he wasn't happy at all there with his first few corners, and maybe was quite a bit down on his delta, so he will certainly be going again. Schumacher, I said we were going to go on board with him, but we are now going to go on board with him, considering that he's still completing his lap time. Into the hairpin we go. He does have a Aston Martin there in front of him. Hopefully Aston Martin keeps out of his way. Does the Aston Martin know that he's on a lap? The answer is he probably does, but doesn't want to have to go in behind him. Schumacher held up maybe ever so slightly. We'll get a little bit of a tow coming across the start-finish line. It's an over 3/10 improvement there. Goes up into P7. Potentially lost a little bit of time through that final corner. but he'll have at least one more attempt to get his best lap time on the board. Smeggy there saying the Volokongren has brightened his day. That's what you like to see. At least if it's someone from your own team, then that's certainly very nice. Here, let's go on board with the current pole state of that is Allison, who's about half a tenth up through the first two sectors as it currently stands. Could anybody get into the 1 minute 29s here tonight? That's certainly something to look out for. We could potentially see that from some of these drivers who are obviously towards the top of the grid so far, and obviously some who haven't even set a lap time at the moment. Still got 4 drivers who haven't got qualified bans yet to set a lap time. As we come down the back straight now with the Red Bull of VNT's Allison, his teammate, they're getting well out of his way of Nalgio, who is on his outlap. Through the hairpin we go, second gear, get the car rotated very nicely there before we get back on the power. Once again, climbing up the very small incline into the final corner, goes fourth gear, like some people who do see go into fifth, but better on the rotation there for VNT's Allison, and we are into the 1 minute 30s, a 2/10 improvement nearly in that final section. It's a 30.9 for the Red Bull man, and Allison looking very, very good in these very early stages, looking very strong there. For VNT, who need a big bounce back, as I mentioned last week, after a poor showing. They definitely need to improve on that. Nick there goes up into P6, just ahead of Allison's team at Nal now with a 31.2 of his own. That is a Alpine coming across the line. That was not Tiago, was it a Williams? Sorry, in fact, no, sorry, it was a Williams of Leo there, who goes into P13. Tiago now is the one coming across the line, quarter of a second up as it currently stands. Stays in P12, but with a 31.5, near enough a 3/10 improvement. So currently, for Tiago there, a couple more cars coming to the line. Is that Sal? No, it's not Sal. That was his teammate Polymassi, who now goes into P2 with a 30.1. Good effort there from BRC's Polymassi, who has shown good prospect and promise this season, but unfortunately been lustling a little bit down the order when it comes into the race. Tony now going through the final corner, does not extend it like he did last time around, so he will complete that, and he puts a marker down there to VNT's Allison with over a 10th clear to the Red Bull there, 30.8 exactly. And there was me thinking, are we going to get into the 1 minute 30s? We're already there, and we're comfortably there as it currently stands. Lorenz now going to P3 with 31 flat. Quantum now coming to the line. He is ahead on his time. It's a 30.9 there for Quantum. Gets ahead of his teammate. FRT now locking out the second row as it currently stands. Smeggy, that's just not a fact, is it? That's just your opinion, which is entirely false. Excuse me. I certainly do not like that or love that in the slightest. That's a cat stop hiccuping now. That's just that's not ideal. Right. Let's see who is on a lap at the moment. Crowding has invalidated, so he is not on a lap. Sal is on a lap, half a tenth down to his 33.9 that he said. Obviously he's going to find a lot of time through this final corner because he binned it, as we did see earlier. It's a 32.4 only though, the best part of half a second off Typical, who is the next driver in front of him. So Sal clearly struggling at these early stages, but we've still got KJ to set a lap time, as has S95 Dome as well, who is in the box. The game will not let me press LT to go back on board with KJ. That's not ideal, so let's go back on board with the Ferrari man, who I believe is the only driver on track to finish his lap, unless he's going to box and go for one more final hurrah at the end of this session. Into the final corner now. Does he go straight into the box? No, we are going to complete this lap time. Where's it going to be? His teammate currently in P10 at the moment, and KJ goes into P17 ahead of Sal at least, but still behind Typical there, who's in P16, but over 1.2 seconds off pole position as it currently stands. We have not seen splits like this for quite some time now. I mean, it is close at the top, less than 2/10 separating the top three, but we've seen it a lot closer throughout this entire season so far. So maybe China is a track where, at least a one-lap pace, we could be seeing some big discrepancies, as most drivers are now obviously back in the box. Niall has come out immediately in his Red Bull to get his final attempt underway. Did not set a second attempt. I think he must have backed out and went straight back into the pits. Clearly, obviously, because he wouldn't have had enough time to get a final run in. We've got just over 3 minutes left of this short qualifying session here at the Shanghai International Circuit, and well, it is still all to play for. But can KJ get back into the pits and go again? That is going to be the question. With 3 minutes left now, it's going to be close. It might be closer, but that could potentially be his qualifying over and done with. As more drivers now coming back out onto the track to set to show their hand one more time here in qualifying before we do get into the race later on. Obviously, we will have a little bit of an interval in between before we get ourselves back underway and back going again. One thing I haven't really mentioned, I know we've gone about the team standings, obviously, because that's where the points, the prizes are handed out here in TTC. But going into the driver standings, because we've not really covered that at all this season. But Quantum does lead the driver standings by 39 points, but he has done 7 out of the 8 rounds so far, and tonight will be his 8th of the season. The only race he has not done was Catalunya back in round 6, so he's here once again, and I think what is probably arguably one of his best or better tracks. Well, here comes now through the final corner. Does he have, could he go again? If he makes a mistake in his first sector, he does have time to go again. Keeps it to the right hand side, then brings it over to the left onto the curb, straightens us up, and we enter through the first few corners for the final time. Flicks the car in pretty nicely there. It takes a little bit of a wider entry there going in through turn 3 compared to what some other drivers do. Some just straight line it and just try and hope for the best some sort of ways, but it's working for now, and we are a 10th up through the first sector alone there into 23.9 there for the Red Bull man. So he will be completing this lap unless we see a mistake here in this middle sector. Coming through the left-hander now. Flat out in 6th gear, then keeping the car over to the left-hand side. Then downshifted twice into 4th gear. KJ does indeed retire. He's not going to get a lap into. It's P17 at best there for KJ, but back on board and stick on board with now does have some traffic in front of him. The Haas gets out of the way, so does the Ferrari, and he will have a VCARB, a racing bull there. Potentially might get a long slipstream, but we'll wait and see, as we are just over a 10th and a half up through the middle sector. So far so good here for Niall. His teammate is up in P2 at the moment. He will once again to the 1 minute 30s and get close to him as much as he can. Gets a long distance tow there from the VCARB in front of him, just about getting one. I mean, it's sort of worked, I guess. For now there, as we hit 208 miles an hour briefly before downshifting into 2nd gear, into the hairpin, very nicely clipping the apex there on the inside. Perfectly done by the VNT man. One more corner to go now. Flicks the car in, keeps it in 5th gear, back on the power, uses what battery he has left. DRS on, but what's it going to be? It's P5 for Niall. Lost a bit of time actually in the end in that final sector, unfortunately for him, but it's P5 nonetheless. That's Nick at the top of the track. Pepine goes P11 with a 31.4 unless he invalidated potentially. In fact, I think he did invalidate to finish his lap time there, so not ideal. We do have the 2nd Red Bull. That will be Allison coming into the hairpin now. He's only a 3rd of a 10th up at the moment, so not enough to get ahead of Tony at the moment. He's going to find at least another 10th of a second if he wants to take provisional pole back away from the SCI man. Flicks the car in, full 100% commitment, and in fact he does not improve at all, and he stays P2 at best for the time being. That is Dome, not Dome, is Dome actually about to start his lap time. In fact, he's missed, he does a 31.8, he goes P15, my apologies. Mercedes coming up next. Is that Venom? It is indeed Venom. I expected him to be much higher up the grid. Can he do it on his final attempt? What's it going to be? It's only P7. He does not improve. He's going to be disappointed being all the way down to P7, and that's at P7 at best. Here comes Mateus now, a 10th up as it currently stands, does improve but stays in P12. Excuse me. Here comes Venom's teammate Tony now, currently our provisional pole sitter, and he's 5,000 slower in the end. That is a kick Sauber running very wide. That was Lorenz there, who did not improve, thankfully, or else if it did, then some questions would have been asked. Tiago improves up into P11 with a 31.3 times, coming in thick and fast. Stack does go into the box. He's finished now. Nick does not improve because obviously he track extended. Quantum goes P2 for FRT, gets ahead of Allison, goes onto the front row with a 30.8, gets to within less than a 10th, excuse me, of Tony. Schumacher coming across the start finish line now. Where can he go? He goes up one position up into P9. That's Paulie Massey coming across the line. He goes up one place now, goes ahead and back end of Niall and into P5. Excuse me. And that, I believe, is qualifying done. It is qualifying over and done with, and it is SCI with another pole position this season, and it goes to Tony Reich in the Mercedes. And just to put another stronghold here on this TTC Championship season in the Premier tier, and SCI just dominating, and it's like I said, it's another pole position for them from Quantum in P2 and Allison there in P3. Top 3 teams with each of their own drivers in the top 3 there. That's kind of what they would have at least expected or wanted. Polymassi in a P5 head behind Lorenz Denhenhal, doing a very good job there for BRC. Like I said, Polymassi's been good at his one-lap pace. It's been his race pace that has let him down slightly, so, but maybe tonight could be different for BRC, who, like I said, are still on minus points. Yes, where indeed was the referee, Smeggy. Well, I don't think he improved, so I think he can get. He just got away with that by track extending that final corner. But that is qualifying over and done with. Like I say, it's Tony and Paul from Quantum, Alison Lorenz, Polymassi, Niall, Venom, Snack, Schumacher, Nick round out the top 10. Then you have Tiago, Pepine, Mateus, Crowding, Leo, Dome, Typical, KJ, Sal, and Reese with that qualifying ban. So, qualifying ban in P20. So, give the drivers just over 2 minutes to do what they need to do before we can get this race underway. We're going to go at 29 minutes past the hour. I was thinking just go at half past just because it's a round number, but we're not going to wait an extra minute. We can get these drivers on their way. What I am going to do now is leave my party and create a new one just so that it doesn't do its usual thing during the race. There we go, sorted. So Dams will be happy. At least he doesn't have to tell me to create a new party once again. Yes, Kim. Yes, indeed. Yes, very good Polly there, getting a good lap time on the board at the end there, getting himself up into P5. And like I said, BRC will need a good result considering. Excuse me. Like I said, they've not had the best of seasons. You know, they scraped themselves in after redoing their qualifying session to get into the TTC Premier Tier Championship. You know, deservedly so, at least, you know, with the pace that they showed. But it's not been the best of seasons for them. And hopefully they can maybe turn it around a little bit, or at least get themselves a better result here tonight and get themselves back into positive digits. About a minute to go now before we get ourselves underway for this this 9th round of the championship. Get your thoughts and opinions in the chat, everybody. Who do you think is going to win this race? Who are we going to get a safety car? We've not had one for a little while now. But maybe tonight could be different. Could we have a VSC? Well, we did get a VSC briefly last week for reasons unknown. Maybe tonight could be the night. We'll wait and see. But certainly much cooler, cloudier conditions for the start of this race at least. Could we see some rain? Is there rain forecasted? Does any engineers or does anyone know if we're going to get it? Or is it just going to stay like this? Or could even the sun come out later on? We will wait and see in these next 28 laps of this Chinese Grand Prix. So I'm just going to get a drink just before we start. Right, here we go. Hopefully now we are all set, ready and raring to go. I hope you are, because I sure as hell am. Rain at the end, says Beetle. Ooh. Now that could throw a spanner in the works. That could change the strategies, or maybe just pit a few laps earlier than perhaps they were anticipating, or what, depending on what everyone's strategy is going to be. Could we see something a little bit wild? If I see the soft tyres, then I think someone's clearly on something a lot stronger than water. Or other forms of liquid are available. But we'll wait and see as to if and when that does come. But right here, right now, it is cloudy, it's overcast, but we have 5 red lights here for the Chinese Grand Prix. And it's lights out, and away we go. Finally, the game actually lets me decide that I could actually get these things on. But it's a great start there from Tony, and he easily fends off Quantum there going into turn 1, home to the inside line, and just about everybody in the top 7 at least has stayed on maintained position. We are 2 wide, nearly 3 wide now, coming through the first few corners here in the midfield. The Ferrari there is Schumacher trying to get involved to gain some places, trying to promote himself through the field. Lorenz there side by side with Venom coming up the hill now down into Turn 5 and 6, that is Leo towards the back of the field. He's been clipped, he is round, he is in the wall, and unfortunately that is the host being sent for a spin. Not too sure who he made contact with. Either way, Venom did not get the move done on Lorenz. In the end, he manages to keep himself ahead. But look at that right behind them. Snack and Schumacher going side by side, as is Venom and Lorenz now side by side between these 4 drivers. It's 2 by 2 near enough. Who's going to come out on top? Schumacher on the inside there of Snack. A little bit of contact as Snack goes wide off the exit of the corner. Schumacher now trying to dive it down the inside. Here comes Snack. Is that Snack? No, it's Thiago. Sorry, now trying to get the move done on his teammate. Teammate's going side by side. Easy there, boys. You know, you don't want to hit your teammate, and in fact, in the end, Mateus takes full advantage. He gets the move done there on Thiago. Just about, indeed, he does. Thiago now go flying it across the inside line to try and get a little switch back, get to the inside to the hairpin, but it's just not happening. But he's now pulling alongside is the Alpine there on the McLaren, and with quite a bit of battery being used. Later on the brakes, oh, the rear of the car there, stepping out slightly, I think, tried, so he didn't hit his teammate. Mateus is still there, though, on the inside. He'll be on the inside into the final corner, but he backs out of it, thinks better of it, sticks it behind. Oh, a little bit of contact there, a bit of a wobble. He broke a little bit too late there. It is the McLaren driver. Just about comes out ahead of Crowning now, who's going to look interested down into the first turn. He's going to be in the inside line for P11, and Crowning, does he get the move done? Mateus going to try and hang it around the outside there. All these drivers in the top 12 on the medium compounded tyres, and Crowning does get the move done. Great opportunity move there by the ART man. Gets himself into P11. Wants a bit of great start there, as usual, as it generally is there for Crowning. Leo goes into the box, so definitely some wing damage. And KJ now also has had an incident towards the back of the field between himself, Dome, and Typical, I believe it was. He's now the best part of 4.5 seconds off this train. So this top 18 now still in this train, with KJ and Leo having their own separate issues. But yeah, quite a bit of split strategy here. Medium tyres for the top 12. Then we've got hard tyres for the majority now of the rest of the runs, besides Dome there, who is on the mediums himself. Go a little bit further towards the front. Polly Massey is just about clinging on to the DRS of Niall there in front of him. We'll see. Have a quick check on the winners and losers off the start. So now jumping 2 places, and obviously it's Lorenz who's dropped 2 places. As a result, Polymassey still stays in P5. Obviously Crowning up 3 places. His teammate is up 4, is Reese, obviously avoiding the carnage at the start. So a decent start there for AERT, but they do need to get themselves further up the field. But now we might see drivers start to hold station a little bit, but obviously the pace at the front set here by Tony is quite relentless, to say the least. You have Polymassey and Lorenz trying to stick into the obviously the respective drivers in front of them, so they don't lose out here. Venom will potentially want to get a move done on the kick Sauber in front of him, as now sets the fastest lap of the race there at the end of lap 2 as we start lap 3 now. But this is just going to be one big long DRS train, unless there's a mistake potentially made. It just could be a one, like I said, a one long DRS train. Schumacher getting close to the back of Venom, who made a mistake going through the first few turns there. Good evening to you, Jamie. Nice to see you. I'm back in the box again tonight, obviously, after the Battlefield session last night. Back here in the box again before going back on it afterwards. Can you invite Typical if possible, please? I didn't realise that he'd lagged out. He didn't actually come up on my screen. But yes, seeing as though he is on Xbox at least, I should be able to. There we go. Right. So if he joins, great. If he doesn't, then you can't say that I haven't done anything. There we go. He has joined. So hopefully he's able to take control of his car, and he can get himself going again. But unfortunately for Typical, he is now 3 seconds off the train in front of him. No real moves going to be made towards the front unless Quantum can get closer to the back of Tony's Mercedes diffuser in front of him, right on board with the kick Sauber. But nope, goes into non interested in making a move, just going to get close to him on the braking and just save that battery as much as he can. And yeah, ooh, look at the I mean, we all know China is known for its smoggy conditions, and well, that's nothing new there, as you can sort of see in the distance, unless that's just the cloud. But yeah, obviously we won't go into that any further. As VNT getting the 2 drivers very close to each other, Allison from Nowlev. So VNT having at least a good start to this race. Allison holding position and now gaining 2 places. So obviously, like I said, they need to maximise these points and close the gap back in on SCI out in front of them. But that gap has been over 100 points now. And you know, we've still got a long way to go in this this championship battle. Anything can still happen, but they're going to need a bit of luck, and they're going to need SCI to have a number of bad races and even be out of the points maybe, or at least on 1 or 2 occasions for them to have any chance in closing that gap back up. But so far so good for VNT in P3 and P4. Again, all these top 17 drivers now in the DRS train. I hope that Typical's been able to take control of his car, but it doesn't look like it, Beetle. I'm guessing he's having issues and the game won't let him take control, and if that's the case, I think that's unfortunately Typical done for this evening, which is a real shame. Right on board with Schumacher, who got fairly close to the back of Quantum before coming out of the banking, but out in front though, Quantum has now decided that the time is now to make the move, and down the inside he goes into the hairpin corner, the Pulsebit corner. An easy move there done for the Kicksauber, and he takes the lead of this race. Tony will now just settle him to P2, recharge that battery as much as he can, unless he wants to get the move done straight away back on the Kicksauber in front of him. We're out of board with the Mercedes driver for SCI, but no, Tony not really interested, goes back into non, and we'll just save that battery perhaps for the next lap or two. His gaming wheel is just a little bit cooked. Okay, so not quite the roast chicken or roast dinner that we would like to see, but yeah, different kind of cooked, unfortunately, there for Typical, who that is unfortunately his race done, and with Leo obviously having to make an early pit stop for that being clattered into the wall by I don't know who it was, unfortunately. Then yeah, it's not been a good day at the office there for Typical and Leo as it currently stands, and for LCR. But this is lap 5 of 28, and things have settled down as you would expect. Drivers just wanting to save ERS, try to not use their tyres too much, and just stick with the driver in front of them unless a mistake is made. Crowding though has dropped out of the DRS. From Snack and Tiago in front of him, and maybe this is the split that we might now start seeing. Mateus is potentially going to have to now make a move if he wants to close back in on the DRS train. Crowder did close in through the chicane there. Does he get the DRS coming? Was he there within the 1 second through the detection point? The answer is yes, he was. So great effort there from Tiago. In behind though, Mateus is now coming under threat from the hard tyre runner of IRT's Nick. So IRT going for a different strategy, going for the hard tyres to start this race, doing something a bit different, and maybe at this point the hard tyres are now coming into play. They've warmed up, the grip is now there for them, and that is Nick getting the move done as Schumacher goes for a very early pit stop at the end of lap 5 here to get off those medium compactor tyres and put himself on the hard. So maybe that might trigger a few early pit stops here, but we'll see how that goes for the Ferrari man. But if there is obviously that rain that is due potentially in this race, that might be a winning strategy. Same with those who have started on the hard tyres. If you can get them to go until the rain hits and save a pit stop, that could work out in their favour, but we will have to wait and see in the next sort of 10 to 15 laps if that is going to benefit them or just indeed hamper them. Snack now has lost the DRS to Venom in front of him, so the top 7 have now pulled away from the second train, which goes from Snack down to Reese in P15. So 2 group of 7 and a group of 8 here. And even then, the gaps are still starting to open up a little bit more. Now looks very comfortable, I must admit, in behind his teammate. Maybe slightly quicker than Allison. Allison had the 1 lap pace. Maybe Niall has got the race pace there. But obviously VNT will not do anything stupid. They will just hold position unless there is a move on, or potentially, you know, we're not going to see a multi-21 this early in the race. Surely not. But I have been proven wrong before. What's to say that I might not be proven wrong once again? Coming to the end of lap 6, the start of lap 7. Sorry, I was just taking a little breather considering that nothing is really happening at the moment, which at some times or at some points is not a bad thing. I can at least save my throat, and not for what Smeggy says that I like to do, and that's the reason why my throat is as it is, because that's just wrong. Is certainly a little bit sore, I will be honest. Dome now goes into the box onto the hard compounded tyres, so he's the only driver to sort of respond to Schumacher, but he was much further down the order and not even in the same DRS train to the Ferrari man. But yeah, nothing really happening in front of these 7 drivers here, from Quantum down to Venom in P7, just all sticking with each other, all fairly comfortable. Gap now nearly 2 seconds to Snack in P8. He's now dislodged his teammate Tiago And if I was them, I'd probably try and get a bit closer to try and pull each other along. It's a good thing that Crowning isn't really too close to take advantage with the DRS that he's going to have down the back straight. But Thiago's certainly struggling with his ERS levels there. He has half as much compared to his teammate, and especially compared to Crowning, who's got over 60% to his 27. So Thiago's certainly struggling at this point in the race. I mean, he will have some form of slipstream aspect to benefit him going down this back straight. And do you know what? I think he actually got the DRS. He somehow got the DRS there. He was actually within the detection point. Nick now on his hard compound tyres, starting to challenge the Racing Bull of Crowning in front of him. We're not really close enough on this occasion to send a move down the inside line, but it will be sooner rather than later before we see Nick make a move, unless somebody dives into the box. It looks like, though, nobody is interested. Nope, so still only Schumacher and Dome, as it currently stands, to go onto those hard compound tyres, thinking that the rain might come earlier than expected. Sorry, just kind of got a little bit distracted there. How did... Oh, for God's sake. That is... Okay, that's an interesting thing. How do you call it? Jamie, that is uncalled for, man. If Crowning watches this back and he sees that, I think he's going to go absolutely livid with you. He's going to be... Yeah. Right, so let's go on board with the Aston Martin of IRT, Nick, after that interesting comment. Is he going to send it down the inside line? Yes, he is. So much later on the brakes, the back of the car there, almost stepping out. Crowning, trying to get some form of a switchback, but it's not there. And that is Nick now up into P10. And now trying to get his way through these medium tyre runners, but like I said, obviously there's a big gap developing between P7 and 8, 2 seconds, the gap between Venom and Snack, and the same again pretty much to Snack to his teammate Thiago, who obviously is leading this train. But that's Nick now up into P10. His teammate is still in P13, is Pepine. Not really making the moves as what his teammate is at the moment, but yeah, Nick doing the job at least, and getting himself up the field in this first half of the race. We'll have to see how that pays off for him come the latter stages, and obviously how far these hard compounded tyres can go. Let's get ourselves further up the grid a little bit, on board with Allison in P3. The gaps are pretty much stabilised between 3 to 6 tenths between these top 7. Venom arguably getting much closer to the back of, I've gone the wrong way, the back of Lorenz there. Coming through this middle sector, but Lorenz just sorting that out a little bit and just puts a few tenths back on the Mercedes driver. But you know, they've all got actually Lorenz has got less than 50% compared to Quantum, just in the 80s. Interesting to see everyone's well, that's near full battery there for Nal, Allison in the 80s, 100% for Tony, 90% for Quantum. So yeah, everybody apart from Lorenz is well, Lorenz has got easily the lowest amount of battery in this train, but he's still at least fairly comfortable for the time being. If anything, Snack is actually gaining on this train, so he's now showing his pace that he's got, and maybe he was just not sandbagging, but maybe he made a few too many mistakes, as Pepine made a move there on Mateus now, and finally trying to follow his teammate and get himself up the field, who's now got into P9. So Nick now leads this next train as Mateus is trying to make an ambitious move round the outside there of the Aston Martin, trying to get on the power, using a bit of battery, but to no avail, and in the end he slots in behind the Aston Martin. That is a very wide Sal, as Snack goes into the box to get an undercut and get himself back within the top 7. So Snack pitting at the end of lap 9 of this Grand Prix. Where's he going to come out in relation to Schumacher, obviously, who pitted very, very early in this Grand Prix? So Schumacher, now on 4-lap old hard tyres, is way ahead of Snack, and he was actually behind him earlier on at the start of this race. Obviously, short-term gain, long-term pain potentially here for Schumacher, but that gap is quite substantial there. Best part of 6 seconds he's got over Snack, as that is Reese now getting a move done on Mateus, who's now just dropping down the order on his let's be honest, second-hand medium tyres there on his McLaren, and yeah, they've definitely now showing the wear and the loss of grip now. But we'll go towards the front of the field, because if pit stops are now going to be happening, maybe we might see a move here from Tony on the back of Quantum. Obviously, with 2 Kick Saubers, 2 Red Bulls, and 2 Mercedes in this train, it's going to be split strategies. Who pits first, who pits second. Polymassy can decide to pit whenever he wants. He can have his teammate much further down the order. He can decide to follow which car and which drivers he feels like it, depending on what his strategy is going to be. In through the penultimate corner come the leaders. Do any of them box at the end of this lap? The answer is yes. The bottom 2, Lorenz and Venom, P6 and P7, going for the undercut. Lorenz are going very wide. You might have picked up a warning there, potentially, you know, coming in through the that final corner. Obviously, used to have gravel there. Obviously, Lewis Hamilton knows all about that. Please don't ask him questions about what used to be going into the pit lane there at China, because I think he might still have nightmares about it. But nonetheless, Venom, no such issues. Lorenz just about getting away with it. Does Venom miraculously jump the Kick Sauber? The answer is no. But where does Snack come out in relation to them? There goes the Alpine, and that is Snack. That is about a 2-second undercut there for the Alpine, and he gets himself ahead of Lorenz and Venom, so that is a net P6 at least as it currently stands for Snack. So good strategy call there by him and his engineers, or anybody involved. What the hell am I reading in the chat? 2 30-year-olds telling each other to call each other daddy is crazy work. I'm not going to make it a third Smeggy, okay? That's just that I will not be taking part in. It's yeah, certainly an interesting one. As Snack, Lorenz and Venom have caught to the back of Schumacher's teammate KJ. Now KJ, is he going to hold these drivers up and try and help out his teammate, as the rest of the leaders all go into the box apart from Nal? So Nal is the VNT driver who is going to have to... Oh, Tony. As we're saying, Nal is going to have to be the one to sacrifice for the time being. Now crowding gets to... Well, at least Tony's now isn't on his own to do that, but that's not ideal for the what was P2 man, as it were, at the time being. And yeah, that's certainly not ideal. But where does Snack come out in relation to all this lot? He's ahead of Quantum. Is he ahead of Tony? The answer is no, but obviously Tony doesn't have that. Oh, that is a Kick Sauber and a Ferrari off in the background. That'll be KJ and Lorenz there coming to blows. I only just saw it in the background from the exit of turns 1 and turn 2, but contact potentially made between the pair of them, and that is now the second FRT driver. He's still within the DRS, but he's obviously got a lot of dirt and muck and crap all over his tyres. He's now going to have to push like crazy if he wants to stick in the DRS of the leaders out in front. But yeah, Snack with that undercut has managed to get himself what is actually potentially a net P2 overall. Tony will lead this Grand Prix. In fact, sorry, I'd say net P3 overall. Schumacher will lead the race on his 6-lap old hard tyres. It's a 3.5 second gap over Tony behind him. Obviously, Tony now having that 10-second time penalty for speeding into the pit lane is just going to, well, demote him like dropping a sack of potatoes, really. That's not ideal for SAI, and certainly what Tony would not have wanted. Either way, they're closing in onto Schumacher, Hanover, Fist. Quantum now trying to close into the back of Snack, obviously, and a couple of lap older hard compound tyres. Quantum going to send it down the inside line there. Snack gives him the room on the inside there, but a bit of a very tight, acute, narrow angle there for the Kick Sauber to get the move done. The second SCI Mercedes of Venom now, getting in close to Quantum. He might want to get a move done himself. Will go on board with the Kick Sauber. Snack does not have the DRS, and that is moved done and dusted there. Same for Venom as well. He goes to the right-hand side of Snack, but Snack going for a switchback through turns 1 and turns 2. Venom will be on the outside line. He'll have the inside into the next corner. Snack might have the better traction on the exit of the corner, but no, not quite. Venom takes the place. He goes ahead of Snack now, what is actually going to be net P3 3 overall with Tony's penalty. These guys are all catching Schumacher hand over fist. Now Tony's less than 2 seconds off the back of the Ferrari in front of him. So yeah, Schumacher's short-term pain, but certainly short-term gain, long-term pain is certainly going to come into effect. Paulie Massey and VT Allison now going side by side through the middle sector. Paulie Massey trying to get the move done on the Red Bull. They're trying to force him out. Why about Allison's going to have the inside into the double left-hander. Paulie Massey's trying to stick around the outside. There's no room there. And in the end, Allison maintains the place what is currently in P10. Lorenz now getting close to the back behind them. And Nal, thankfully for his sake, has not lost the DRS on any of them. He's now at the back of the train though, but he does have the freshest tyres. We still have to consider the rain though. When is that going to come? If it will come, will it be heavy enough? We'll have to wait and see. Yes, Smeggy, unfortunately, yes, he did speed into the pit lane, as did Crowding. So that's 2 drivers with 10-second penalties. Vola Kongan requesting a fact. You've now decided to use your points, Vola. So fair enough. So here is fact number 1. The People's Republic of China is the world's 2nd most populous country and the 3rd largest by area. There is your... In fact, you kind of got 2 in 1 there, I guess you could say, Vola. So I hope you do appreciate that. But that is 1,500 points well spent. Troy, it's a 10-second penalty, I'm afraid to say. It was he sped into the pit lane. Not too sure by how much, but he still sped into the pit lane. The only good thing now is Tony has got the move done on Schumacher, and he might be able to pull away. And Schumacher might now start to hold up the rest of the field. So we'll just have to wait and see how that pans out. But yeah, still got to keep an eye on this top 4. We're obviously starting on the hard compound tyres. So that is Nick, Reese, Pepine and Sal. Obviously, this is, lap 14 now of 28. We are just going to reach the halfway point come the end of this lap. But the fact that Tony is the best part of only 6 seconds off the lead as it currently stands, I'm not too sure if not pitting is the way to go. But we'll wait and see. We will wait and see how that pans out for those drivers. So just sending a message there that was rather important. Sort of. Right, either way, back to the action. Quantum into P6 now. Got the move done on Schumacher. Here comes Venom now down the inside of turn 1 on the Ferrari in front of him. And well, yeah, these much older, harder tyres now on that Ferrari are definitely, if they weren't showing already, they certainly are showing now. Schumacher trying his absolute best to stick within the DRS and all these drivers, but he's just not quite got the pace as Venom decides to go a little bit, do a bit of Tokyo drifting. Through the exit of turn 4 there, but just about kept the car going in a straight line as he tries to stick into the DRS of Quantum. So Tony is your net race leader. Probably will be in the race lead nonetheless either way when it comes to it very soon as they close in on the top 4. But Quantum, without that time penalty, is in the Pouncy as it currently stands, and he might not have the DRS on Tony, but he obviously he doesn't have that 10-second penalty, so he will be slightly, I'm not going to say ecstatic, but it'll be happy nonetheless as it currently stands. Venom now in P7 as it currently stands, Quantum's nearest challenger. Schumacher, I think, has lost the DRS on this occasion. This might not benefit, well, in fact, well, obviously Snack will go for the move on the Ferrari in front of him as we ride on board with the Alpine. Using that battery, DRS now open. Schumacher defends the inside line to, well, there's no point really. Here comes Allison as well to get that move done, and Schumacher loses another 2 positions there. He's not got the battery, he's not got the tyre grip, and he's certainly not got the brakes either as he hits the back of the Red Bull. There goes Paulie Massey now on the inside line, and that is 3 places down 1 straight and through 1 corner for the Ferrari. Lorenz now will want to try and get a move done, but he's not got the battery himself. Nal at the back of this queue will want to get a move on. He's got the freshest tyres, as we've said, but not really using them to any great advantage, and obviously, well, still got just under 13 laps to go here, but you'll want to make them and put them to good use before this rain does eventually arrive. Tony now on the back of the first of the hard starting tyre runners. He goes down the inside of Sal there into turn 6, slightly taps the back of the Aston Martin of Pepijn there, but he splits the two of them, he gets the move done. He'll now want to get the move done as quickly as he can, and Pepijn is going to go round the outside here and through turn 7, and Tony with a great move there now gets himself up into P3 and puts 2 cars in between himself and Quantum and Venom. Obviously he'll want to try and help his teammate Venom to try and get, you know, potentially a victory here. Could be between Quantum and Venom at the moment for the win here. We're still a long way to go. Quantum now goes down the inside of Sal there as we start at the start of the third sector and gets that move done very nicely. You know, 11 lap hold, fresher tyres. What do you expect? Reese now takes the lead of the race for the time being, as I think Nick made a potential mistake. Tony now going to go for the move, and here comes Quantum on the inside of Nick's teammate Pepijn. Is Venom now going to dive it down the inside as well? He's kind of going to need to. And Pepijn did not need to leave the door open as much as he did there. Either way, he did. Venom is going to thank him very much for that, and that is up into P5 for Venom. That is also going off the track there by Pepijn, nearly doing what Sal did in qualifying, and bidding it on the exit wall there. Next is Allison to get a move done. Nick and Sal have gone into the box as Tony now takes the lead of the race. In behind that is Polymassy now trying to get a move done on Snacking through the first few turns. Side by side between the pair of them, this is Polymassy with his 2 lap fresher tyres trying to get the move done on Snack, who obviously went for that undercut. Short-term gain, long-term pain. That's twice I've done that now. Allison up ahead has got the move done there, and Pepijn, oh, Polymassy almost T-boning the Aston Martin, being so much later on the brakes, determined to get this move done on Snack there. Snack trying to go around the outside line. We are side by side with Polymassy, showing how look at the aggression, but round the outside he's got a bit better grip with those fresher tyres. You know, got the inside line through his double left. He leaves the space. Snack is still there. They're both going to have the DRS to the back of Pepijn here, who will not have that on his 16 lap old hard tyres. But Snack he's defending this like an absolute lion as Polymassy sends it down the inside. He hits the side pod of Pepijn. We are 3 wide now, potentially coming from the banking, because here comes Niall now joining in on the fun. Who's the one that's not going to get the DRS? So there's the question. I think it's going to be Pepijn. Oh, that is Polymassy trying to fling it over to the right hand side. Not really coming to any avail. Let's go on board with Pepijn as he gets overtaken by Lorenz now. Who's going to get this move done into the hairpin? Polymassy sends it down the inside of the Red Bull, but it's Snack there with a switchback. He gets the move done. Reese goes into the box as we come through the final corner, and we're still going hammer and tongs here. It's Snack trying to defend there, but Niall goes to the inside line. Polymassy tries to follow him through, which indeed he does, and in the end Snack is the loser. Polymassy gets the move done eventually, but he's lost out to Niall. But these guys, after they're squabbling and they're battling, they are 3.5 seconds off the back of the top, well, technically the top 3, which is Quantum, Venom and Allison. The gap is 1.8 between Quantum and Tony, but obviously Tony has that 10-second time penalty. So as it currently stands, he, I think, is going to drop to P9 behind Schumacher, but ahead of Tiago for the time being. That was action and racing. Well, I'm not going to say at its best, but it was very, very aggressive from Polymassy in particular, but thankfully nobody was hurt, no damage was caused, and we continue going as Niall now tries to extend that gap, and he closes in up to the leaders. Obviously he's got those fresher tyres, and he's now certainly going to have to push if he wants to, well, obviously currently in net P4 as it stands, so it's P3 and P4 for VNT, which is where they were at the start of the race, but they're going to have to push if they want to try and get a double podium here. So they've got Quantum and Venom to get in between or overtake if they can, as we will have 10 laps to go with this Grand Prix once we complete lap 18 and start lap 19. Gap now 2.3 seconds out in front, so Tony is pulling away. He's doing what he needs to do, but it's certainly a tall order to try and pull a 10-second gap over the likes of Quantum, Venom and Allison, which I just personally do not see happening. Just go a little bit further down the field as all this battling has now sort of slowed everything down a bit. Snacker's used pretty much all of his battery there, and he's going to start to struggle now. I think obviously in these tyres, Lorenz now will try and close in. Schumacher, well, he's already struggling. He's got pretty much little to no battery, and he's on the oldest tyres out of everybody here. The time that he gained to begin with, he's now lost. He's back where he was, and he's just going to lose even more time. But he's got a 6.5 second gap over Thiago, who's in P10. He's got Mateus for company behind him and crowding, who also has that 10-second time penalty. Nick is the first of the pit stoppers onto the medium tyres. He's in P13 at the moment. He will use these fresh tyres to the best of his capabilities and try and close in on Crowding and Mateus and Thiago in front of him. But I think anybody else in front of after that, apart from maybe Schumacher, he might struggle to try and surpass and overtake. But there's still maybe a P9 on the cards for Nick, but what will be a fairly disappointing race as it currently stands for IRT. Head back towards, slightly further towards the front of the field, and 2.6 seconds is now the gap between Tony and Quantum, as Venom is not interested in getting a move done. That is a yellow flag, and that is Dome, who has gone for a spin through the double left. I'm guessing just put too much power down. The car complained, and unless the curb came into involvement as well, just lost all rear grip. Obviously he's got the second all hardest tyres to everyone at the moment, and yeah, it's no surprise. So closing in the back of Reese for what is for P14 in the final points paying position as it currently stands. Nick now 3 seconds off the back of the little train in front of him. That is Thiago Mateus and Crowding. Schumacher now nearly 3 seconds off the back of Lorenz now, and just losing so much time as now has got the gap under 3 seconds to his teammates and is closing down that train of 3 in front of him as Tony continues to extend the gap out in front, now pretty much at 3 seconds. But again, it's going to be too little too late, I think, for the SCI man. But he obviously want to maximise the points as best as he possibly can, and he's doing what he can, but it might be too little too late. Polymassi now on the fringes of losing the DRS to Nal in front of him. Snack is already over a second behind him, so Snack, unless he has a monster at the start of the final sector here, is not going to get DRS. In fact, I don't think Polymassi did either. He's had a big squirrel there, and even again he's got another squirrel, got even more squirrely on the exit of the banking, and well, that's Polymassi. His DRS chance now over and done with. Did Snack get the DRS? The answer is he did not through the detection point, but he does have the slipstream at least. So Lorenz will not be close enough to go for a move as it currently stands. That is a possibility, Dirk. Yes, if yeah, obviously now that the gap might, well, hopefully might be able to open up between the likes, obviously with Niall and Polymassi, and if these three all start battling once again, then yes, there is a chance that that could happen. Still no sign of this rain. The conditions and the track looks pretty much exactly the same as to what it did at the start of this race. Maybe the rain might not come at all. It might just come on the final lap. We'll have to wait and see, but let's go back towards these, well, technically leading 3 drivers. Tony out in front there, just doing all he can, just cruising, but with that penalty. Quantum in P2, Venom with a full battery in P3, near enough the same for Allison as well in P4. Gap to Niall now, 2.5 seconds in P5. He is closing, there is no doubt about it. He's closing through the, especially in the middle sector, but obviously because he does not have the DRS, he's just losing that time in the final sector. So only maybe gaining a 10th or 2 a lap, which isn't going to be enough, excuse me, for the second VNT driver. What we will do is to bring up the gap to leader. So yeah, as it currently stands, Tony with his penalty will be excuse me, in P10. But yeah, there is a chance he could finish higher up, as that Pepine who's now gone for a spin. Indeed it is Pepine who's gone for a spin, and just following pretty much what Dome had done. Same place, same position, same outcome, just lighting up the rear tyres clearly a little bit too much, as Venom is getting very close to the back of Quantum there, who I don't think was defending the inside going into turn 1, but certainly may have got Venom a little bit interested as we come through the first few corners. 2 of the best pad drivers on this game, as we are battling for P6 between Polymassi and Snack. Snack, even with his older tyres, trying to get a move done around the outside through the first few turns, as Polymassi just sends the car into turn 3. The back end kicking out like a fish there, but just about gets away with it. But they're just losing time of these 3. I mean, Lorenz, they're not really going for any move, but yeah. Yeah, they're certainly just holding each other up, but this is going to help Tony, obviously, out in front. Smeggy, either Tony backs up or Venom slows up. I don't think you're going to want either, if I'm brutally honest, because Tony will want to pull away because he knows he's got the gap over, the likes of, Lorenz, Snack and Paulie Massey to try and get at least a P6 if he can, which I think is doable. We're still over 6 laps to go. There is plenty of time for that to happen, so I can certainly see him being able to do that, but we'll have to wait and see as Paulie Massey goes over to the inside line to try and stop the toes, stop the slipstream to the Alpine behind him, and that is the rain. I'd just seen it there as I switched over to Snack. The first drops of rain have arrived. This is going to get interesting. Is it going to be wet enough to change to intermediate tyres, or can these drivers hang it out on these medium hard compounded tyres for the final 6 laps of this race? Stay tuned, everybody. Let's see what we're going to get. Smeggy saying, I'm P1 hungry. That April Fools isn't for another 5.5 months, Smeg. What's your next joke? Looks like you haven't got one, which doesn't surprise me. Right, let's go on board with Allison in P4 at the moment, behind Venom, behind Quantum. They've been like this ever since the pit stops, and they got their moves done on the hard tyre runners. Dome is already going into the box now. Is he going on to intermediate, or is it going to? It is intermediate. So we've got our first pit stopper. Maybe Dome is going to be a bit of a give feedback to his teammate Mateus there, who obviously they've not had a good race of either of the McLaren drivers for different reasons. But let's see what Dome can do on these intermediate tyres. I don't think it's wet enough just yet. I mean, yes, there are spots of rain, but there sure as hell is not enough of them to warrant to change tyres, I think, at this stage. But we'll keep an eye. Let's see what sort of lap times these guys are doing, as Tiago now gets the move done on Schumacher, who's just continuing to drop down the field. And they're 3 seconds off on that lap, so maybe we're not far away from intermediates. That is a yellow flag, and that is Nick, I think, who tried to go for a move on Schumacher, and is my guess, and it just didn't pay out. Sal now picking up a time penalty. Schumacher goes into the box. He's pitting now for these intermediate tyres. He's got no choice. He has no alternative, really, so he probably wanted that rain to have come earlier rather than later. But either way, it is intermediate tyres. The second driver to go on them. Let's have a look and see how Dome is getting on these his intermediates. I mean, I know he's gaining on Typical, but obviously Typical is a ghost car, so we'll keep an eye on that and see how that is. In fact, we'll go gap to leader. So 1 minute and 15 is the gap between himself and Tony, and he is losing a tiny little bit of time. It's not a huge amount, but he is losing time. He's lost about 3/10. It's sort of a sector and a half. It's at that crossover point. It's nearly there. Smeggy, you love the ads. Don't lie, you absolutely love them. Here comes Venom now, getting close to the back of Quantum, going into the hairpin in the penultimate corner, but not close enough. Wasn't really interested in going for a move. Do any of these leaders come into the pits? Tony stays out. He probably has to either way. Quantum stays out. Venom stays out. Allison stays out. What does Nal do? He stays out. I think all these drivers are going to stick it out to the end of this race with 4 laps to go here. Now Paulie Massey and Snack still battling away for what is P6 on track. Paulie Massey going all the way to the right-hand side to not give Snack any sniff to go down the inside there. And in the end, Snack wasn't interested in the slightest. Schumacher on his 1 lap newer intermediate tyres, even though he's got fresher tyres compared to Pepijn in front of him, isn't gaining. The gap is sort of stabilised about 40. Well, I say that actually, he's just gained a few tenths there. Where is he? He's coming through the final sector. In fact, yeah, Pepijn actually goes into the box, and maybe now Pepijn decided that he wanted to join the 10-second time penalty club. Can I just point out, I don't particularly want the ads myself, but I've got no choice. I can't take them off. I earn nothing from this. I don't even get 1p, let alone 12p. And even if there was, you know, you got a cost cut and everything, haven't you? Either way, back to the action out on track. I think it is now about time for intermediate tyres. Schumacher is actually gaining on the cars in front of him, and the droplets are starting to form out on the track. But with 3 laps to go, do you take the chance? The track is just going to get wetter and wetter, but is there going to be enough time to close in? Is anybody going to gamble? You can see the rain falling on the circuit. Those conditions are absolutely treacherous. Does anybody box? No, they all stay out. What does Nal do? He stays out. I'm a little bit intrigued. I thought somebody might chance it onto the Inters, but no, none of them are. They're all sticking out. Lorenz there deciding that the final corner is just a straight line, just like he did in qualifying. Yeah, I'll be honest, Erg, I would have pitted as well, even with 3 laps, with the fact that these conditions are just going to get worse and worse as Lorenz there just completely misses turn 1. You're just going to be so much quicker. As Snack and Polymassi still battling away for P6. Polymassi defending for this P6 for all his life to try and get BRC into positive points. He's going to defend it down the inside. On Snack there, who goes for a switchback move. We're not going to go side by side through here, are we, in these conditions? Yes, we are. Polymassi on the inside, Snack on the outside. He hasn't quite got the grip. Polymassi he doesn't run him out wide, just gives him a little bit of a nudge there. But no harm done, and that is Polymassi maintaining position for the time being. But these two going hammer and tongs. What this has now done, though, is Tony has got that 10-second gap now quite comfortably over Polymassi. So he's now at least in P6. As it currently stands, trying to regain a little bit of redemption, I guess you could say. Allison struggling in P4. He's now over a second behind Venom in front of him. So maybe this is between Quantum and Venom for this race victory here tonight. Tony is still pulling away. Gap at 3.7 seconds, 3.8 now. But yeah, not really come to any avail. Is Quantum going to get DRS here off the back of that Williams, who actually goes into the box? Yes, he does. That's very kind of the Williams to do that for him. Interesting comments there in the chat. We're not going to read any of that out as we are now on the penultimate lap of this race, and the DRS is now disabled. Venom should have gone for the move. I mean, I know he's got all the one lap all the tyres, but yeah, maybe he should have gone for the move. Crowding, why are you pitting now with your 10-second penalty? What is the point? It's a bit too little too late. What you've just done is gifted Schumacher a point. Maybe even 2 points, actually, now, obviously, with Sal with his time penalty of his own. We'll see how these intermediates do in these final 2 laps. But let's go to the leaders. Now less than 2 seconds off the back of his teammate, but not really going to close in enough, I think. What I did miss was Snack getting the move done on Polymassi for P6. He finally got the move back on the Haas there, even with his older tyres. So fair play to Snack there for getting that move done. But let's go on board with the 3 race leaders. Allison going very wide into the chicane to the start of sector 3 through the banking. I want to ride on board and see what this is like. Look at how tentative they are on the throttle, just so they don't light up those rear tyres and spin the car completely. Now is closing in hand over fist over these 3, but the time that he lost earlier on, those 3 seconds have cost him. They have paid dividends, and it's going to, well, stop him from any chance of battling Venom and Quantum in particular. VNT will certainly hold station unless An error or a mistake is made. Tony leads the way. He starts the final lap of this race, but this is the battle for the race lead. It is Quantum versus Venom. How many times have we seen this over the years between these two really great, amazing pad drivers? As we start on this final lap, coming through the first few turns for the final time, so tentative just to not spin the car. I mean, but look at this though. Schumacher is now closed in on Sal. He's overtaken him, and I think he's gained the best part of 8 seconds on this previous lap. In fact, I want to see Matthias set Nick sets a 53 flat. It's a 44.5 for Schumacher. He's 8.5 seconds quicker on these intermediate tyres. So, 3 or 4 laps on inters, and you certainly will have gained and made some overtakes on drivers in front as these conditions just get worse and worse. Quantum actually now has extended his advantage over Venom to 1.1 seconds. Maybe this is the point where Venom's tyres are just... that grip is just slightly too big, too much of a disadvantage for him to make any impact on the Kick Sauber in front of him. Indeed, Venom losing P1. I mean, he did a good undercut there with the strategy to get himself up into net P2. Well, what was net P3, but second because of Tony's penalty. But yeah, the qualifying is where it's cost him. I mean, look at this. The AI there are typical, actually overtaking Nal there. You don't see that too often. Either way, through the banked corner for the final time, Quantum has just got to pick that braking point for one more time into the hairpin, and he surely will take the victory here tonight. Excuse me. As we've got yellow flags everywhere. I mean, look at this. Schumacher's now up into P9. I mean, I'm not watching it. I do apologise, Schumacher. You're doing a really good job on these intermediate tyres, and now you're up into P9. But the battle and everything's happening all out in front. Tony comes through the final corner for the final time. He will take victory out on track, but the penalty is going to cost him, and it's going to be Quantum who takes the win for FRT. He gets it here in China from Venom, and Allison will finish on the podium ahead of his teammate now there in P4. Tony will finish P5 in the end, and SCI and VNT pretty much equal on points for this event, in this race at least. Snack will finish P6, Polymassy P7, Schumacher gets into P8 in the end on those intermediate tyres. Lorenz there crossing the line with some wing damage, not too sure how that's come about. But it's P9 for Lorenz there, Reese in P10, Thiago in 11th, Mateus in 12th, from Nick in 13th, Sal in P14, who goes wide of the final corners. That's Pepine and Crowding fighting over, actually technically what was the final point, and Crowding in the end gets the final point there by I suppose actually taking that pit stop sort of worked ish, but that's only because I think Sal got obviously those penalties. So Crowding P14, Sal 15, Pepine 16, Dome will finish in P17, KJ P18, obviously typical, and Leo they're rounding out the field in P19 and P20. Yes, Grumpy, crowding a point, I know. You love to see it. But there we have it, ladies and gentlemen. That has been round 9 of the season, and there we have FRT back on the top step of the podium, and it is Quantum taking the victory here tonight from Venom in P2, and Allison taking P3 in the end. Reese there with driver of the day, most overtakes, and cleanest driver. Yeah, fair play. I mean, P20 to P10, not bad, especially considering he had that qualifying ban, and he finishes ahead of his teammate Crowding, who obviously didn't, and over 15 and a half seconds ahead of him. So maybe Grumpy, but perhaps she gave the wrong driver the qualifying ban. Maybe should have given it to Crowding and not Reese instead. He might have actually got a better finishing position. Who knows? Either way, that is your finishing order. And like I said, it's Quantum from Venom and Allison, your top 3. Nal in P4, Tony P5, so you're going to go Snack, Polymassy, Schumacher, Lorenz, and Reese rounding out the top 10 there with that driver of the day performance. Thiago, Mateus, Nick, and Crowding are your final points finishers there to P14. Then you have Sal, Pepine, Dome, and KJ rounding out the technical finishes. Obviously, typical lagged out early, and Leo, I think, just went a lap down with what was a bad day at the office there for LCR, finishing P19 and P20. Reese didn't do any practice. Well, maybe that's the strategy then. Don't do practice, start last, finish 10th. Not a bad day's work, I guess you could say. So maybe he deserves a couple of quid for that performance. But that has been the Premier Tier Chinese Grand Prix, obviously, stick around for tomorrow night and for Friday for the top tier and the Artemis tier, respectively, for their attempt at the Shanghai International Circuit. We return next week for the 10th round of the season before we have the 1 week break for the Circuit de Gilles Villeneuve in Montreal, from a open wide circuit here at China to a street circuit in Canada in Montreal. I hope you can all join us for that, ladies and gentlemen. But from Mr. Bobbert here in the box tonight, I hope you enjoy the rest of your evening. I will see you again next week. Take care, everybody.